It is the final night of the regular season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Boston and Toronto down at Scotiabank Arena, and it's a little more on the line than we originally thought there'd be tonight, Dave. We'll explain why on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me is my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can now also catch us up on video on YouTube. Just search Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, which we're, I guess, just over 60% away from reaching that, we'll be giving away a sweet prize. A sweet prize, guys. So go ahead.
Blow your socks off.
Go and make sure that you are subscribed. Dave, 81 games down. We're down to the final game of the regular season. And it's tonight, Boston, Toronto, and seemingly there's a little bit more on the line than we thought, isn't there?
Oh, I know. I mean, it was quite, interesting that we get the night off. Usually Leafs don't play a lot on Friday, so not have a game on Thursday was weird, but seeing the drama unfold with Tampa losing to Columbus, and I'm just like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
This like if I'm really curious to see how much Boston now really wants to play the Leafs in the playoffs, because this is going to be things
Well,
have
that's
to.
the thing, right? I'm thinking to myself, I see Boston last night. They get a 5-0 win over Buffalo, and then I see Tampa lose last night, I think 5-2 to Columbus, and all of a sudden, Boston needs one single point tonight, and Tampa needs to lose, and it's Leafs Boston round one.
It's crazy.
If you're Boston, though, we'll get to how the Maple Leafs feel about this in a second. If you're Boston, don't you kind of want to throw this game? I personally feel like I would rather get into the Metro division, like drop down to the wild card spot and cross over into the Metro and take on a Carolina Hurricanes team that has no goalie right now. They don't have a goaltender. Like Frederik Andersen is injured and not going to be ready to go for the first couple of games, reportedly. Antti Ranta is hurt right now, and we don't know when he's going to be back. But that guy gets hurt every 20 minutes. Like, dude's made glass, unfortunately. They're down to a rookie third-string goaltender. Personally, I think if I'm Boston, like I might not want to come in and put my best foot forward tonight. I might want to just take the L and go play Carolina in a 7-game series instead of the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and look, this is not just playing the Leafs, because if they manage to beat the Leafs, then they got Florida, like potentially Florida next, right?
Exactly, in round 2. It's just as or maybe even more difficult.
Exactly, and like we're and you brought up the Carolina part too, and like no matter which team, Tampa or Boston, like they're locked in on that Metro if they're the first wild card. So the other thing too is like, okay, you look at the Metro division. The only team, in my opinion, that worries me is the Rangers.
Yeah.
Like they can play to the Bruins style. They got the guys that can play, and they got the goaltender too. They're the team out of the Metro that concerns me the most. When it comes to, I just don't know if Boston. It didn't play like a team last night that wants to throw this thing. That's the other thing as well, because they could have easily just been like, we'll get a point, or no. This is a team that won 5-0.
Yeah, I get this sense that tonight's game is going to be a very skeleton roster to what last night was. I think that was kind of the last hoorah for those guys, Bergeron and
Yeah.
Pasternak and Taylor Hall, for all of them to go out there and get their points, get their cookies. tonight will be a little bit more of a scaled down roster, I would assume, especially Bergeron, who had a hat trick in last night's game. So I don't think that Boston is going to send their best squad, obviously. But that said, I mean, whoever is out there, they're clearly going to be going pedal to the metal. But if you're Boston, like, it's not such a terrible thing if they come out and lose this game tonight, because I think that it would give them, it's not an easy path, but an easier path to the conference final, having to roll through a goaltenderless Carolina and maybe New York, as opposed to a Toronto, Florida to get to the conference final in the Atlantic. But if you're Toronto, you're the Maple Leafs, so we'll look at it now from a home perspective. How are you approaching tonight? Because I think would you rather play Boston? I think I'd rather play Boston than Tampa.
I think the one position that always I've always said is Tampa's got the goaltending. They got Andrei Vasilevsky. He's the trump card in all this. Boston has an unproven tandem in Swayman and Ullmark.
It's an off day today. We got
none of those guys. None of those guys worry me in comparison to what Andrei Vasilevsky can do. So if I'm the Leafs, that's the comfort you take in that. I think the Leafs, yeah, the Bruins made deadline acquisitions to try to bolster their team with Lindholm. I just think, and look, they've played some good hockey of late, but Tampa's got that experience. They match up a little bit better in terms of depth and talent against the Leafs. I just don't think Boston has it in terms of past years. And as I said, I don't think the goaltending is good enough. They're not playing Tuukka Rask anymore. This is a totally different Bruins team without Tuukka Rask, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. But Swayman's also been an unbelievable goaltender, and they just saw last night Allmark pitched a shutout, so they still have good goaltending. That, like, it's
It's not terrible
unproven.
goaltending.
It's unproven goaltending.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? And that's a big difference, right? You're not a playoff goaltender until you are a playoff goaltender. I can't remember who said that, but somebody on my show did. Maybe it was Noodles who said it or something like that. But and neither Allmark or Jeremy Swayman have proven to be that quite yet. They could be, but we don't know. That's, we know it. And clutcher than clutch, that guy. Last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, every single time their team had a chance to clinch a series, he pitched shutout. It's That's killer instinct. If you want to bring back an old phrase that was percolating in Toronto at the beginning of the season, or last year once they got eliminated. Yeah, if I'm Toronto, I think Boston's definitely the team that you want to play, though. I think that they are probably better suited to play the Bruins. Last time they went, they skunked them, right? Last time these two teams played each other, they went and they beat the crap out of them, essentially. And I remember it was like the last time they played was the Taylor Hall game, correct? If I'm not mistaken, when Taylor Hall suckered Ilya Mikheyev. Just gonna check quickly, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and Toronto won that game 6-4. Ended up winning that game. So, and then 5-2 earlier in the year. So I think, yeah, clearly I think you want to play Boston if you are Toronto, but you're in that sticky situation tonight where it's like, okay, we don't want to throw this game, but if we win in regulation, that does seal the deal, and the Tampa Bay Lightning will be your round one opponent. But if they lose, or they at least let the Bruins bring it to overtime, there's still a chance. So, like, it's the approach is interesting, and I never want to think that teams throw games because they're professional athletes, and I just don't think that happens. But from a fan perspective, and from someone who's covering the team and wants his team to do well, kind of hoping that they throw the game. Like,
Well, and part of me is also wondering, do the Bruins try to push hard? Like, I don't think they're going to play all their best players. I think
no,
someone's getting sad, especially in my opinion, like a Patrice Bergeron sounds like a guy who won't play
yeah,
tonight. I mean, we're going to record this and a likely change, or something will happen and change all that. But I just think that this is a team that maybe the Bruins are going to take a look at this and say, hey, if we can beat the Leafs and get ourselves into that position, maybe it furthers their belief that they can beat the Leafs as well. So
There
I
you
don't think they're
go.
gonna. I think that's something to look at too, right? And I mean, it will be Swayman likely tonight since Allmark played the night before. I know they've been kind of flip flopping the two, and it's curious to see who they would go with too, considering the Leafs had Swayman's number the last time they played him, as you mentioned, and
Right.
I don't think, I don't think the Leafs will throw the game, but I don't think they're going to. It's not going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those where, the Leafs have their best players out in Matthews, Marner, and Campbell, so it's like they're not exactly going full out force, anyways.
Yeah, let's take a pause right there quickly
Yeah.
because we'll get into that on the other side. But before we get there, Dave, why don't we tell the good folks about one of our show sponsors, and we could dive into a little bit what the Maple Leafs roster is going to look like tonight.
Yeah, so obviously summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacation. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built bar, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to built.com and order now. As we've mentioned many times on this podcast, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. That includes their puffs. We we go crazy for these puffs. They have some great flavors like banana cream pie and even churro puffs. Who would have thought? Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro? And they're only 140 calories. If you haven't signed up yet, I suggest you should do that. It's not enough flavor. If that's not enough flavor for you, go and try their mix box. The mix box comes with 12 flavors of bars and puffs. Built Bar makes sure that there's something for everyone. My favorite flavor, I'm a good cookies and cream type of guy. That's where I usually go when I have
That's
my
your
Built
call.
Bars. Pretty good. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. If you look at other candy bars, most of them have about 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs, which takes away the whole healthy part of having a bar like that. So make sure you go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. So that is promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me. We're your hosts here on the Locked On Leafs pod, a daily Maple Leafs podcast. We'll be ramping everything up starting on Monday. Dave, game one of the playoffs was announced by Sheldon Keefe. Not officially announced, I don't believe, but game one was announced on Monday. So mark that down in your calendar, folks. Make sure you tell whoever who wants to hang out on Monday, absolutely not. Got to root for the boys. Got to root for the buds. And hey, maybe you can get out to Maple Leaf Square. That'd be pretty neat. See that the Leafs were down at Scotiabank last night cheering on the Raptors, and well, it was a bit of a blowout, unfortunately. But a couple of the teammates taking in the games. Matthews and Riley together, Marner and Kerfoot together. Nice little night out for the boys.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it didn't end in the way that
No.
Raptors fans would have liked. We knew that I knew they were going to the game because Martin did mention that they were going to be. He mentioned they're going to be watching the game. So usually when you assume an athlete says they're going to be watching the game
Yeah.
and you got the pull of MLSE behind you, you're going to be there. I don't know if you saw. So when Marner was given the thumbs up with Kerfoot there, Kerfoot wanted nothing to do with Marner's like energy. He had that mountain. He must have had a few Mountain Dews before he went on the court there. But there was also like a girl who was sitting beside Marner, just like trying to do one of like if you're watching YouTube, if you're not watching YouTube, I'm trying to like get away from the camera, and I'm just like, lady, you're courtside, you're gonna be on TV regardless.
The whole
But
game.
yeah, but I thought the boys looked refreshed. I will say that, like especially Matthews pulling off I think maybe he was the more. I mean, Drake was there.
The
I
bucket
don't know if
hat.
he was trying to match Drake's swag a little bit with his outfit too.
Yeah, I think they were all kind of they were all there, and looks like they had some fun. But yeah, again, wish they would have been able to squeak the win for them. and kind of let the Raptors go, hey, we can have playoff success in Toronto, and both of them could have went on big long runs, but fortunately not. Too bad. The Maple Leafs, I thought, or the Raptors, it was a fun series. I thought that they were going to get totally smacked after game two. They put up a fight. They put up a fight. The funny thing about the two teams are Toronto and the two Toronto teams, the Leafs and the Raptors. Imagine if that series that we just saw happen with the Raptors, where they go out, they get blown out game one, blown out game two, they lose game three because missed free throws at the end of the game, but should have really won it, but end up losing in overtime because of it. Let's equate that to an absolute backdoor empty empty net that a player just misses on, fans on. Patrick Stefan type of stuff, and then they lose in overtime. You can almost say it's like that. But then they go out, they win game four to stay alive, win game five to force a game six, and then get blown out in game six. I feel like the mood around the city would be drastically different than it is today for the Raptors. Like there's some respect there for the Raps that they made it to six. But Toronto, the Leafs, if this were to happen to them, there would be mass riots out front of Scotiabank Arena if that were to have happened.
Yeah, especially because the Leafs will have home ice advantage. They would be, I mean, depending on who they play, they'll most likely be favored in the series. I mean, if it's Tampa, some will actually put the Leafs as underdogs. Yeah, no, I just remember this all brings back to 2013 when the Leafs played the Bruins. The Bruins were the big bad Bruins. Leafs were finally back in the playoffs all those years. They get blown out in game one. I remember that. That was a very sad day. Obviously, it would get sadder with the game seven, but this was like the Leafs were in a very tough position in that series, and then they came back and then ended in disappointment. That's where I like the with how that happened with the Raptors. I'm just like the Raptors earned the benefit of the doubt because of
I think of it closer to Washington, the Washington
yeah.
series, Matthews and Marner's rookie year, where they lost in six, but the fact that they got six, they made it respectable. I think and you got valuable experience for your young team, and you showed that you have the makings of a good core. I felt like that was more so what we saw in Washington and like in comparison to last night in
Yeah.
Raptors, personally.
Yeah, no, and I think ending in the same way too. It was just, I mean, that game ended. I believe it was overtime. Um, it was, yeah, like the Leafs were playing with foul money at that point. I think you're right on that, and the Raptors were playing with foul money too because nobody knew what to expect of this Raptors team. And obviously the Sixers have championship aspirations, and same as Washington because they would go on to win the
Right.
championship that year. Yeah, so I think
No,
yeah.
it wasn't the year they won.
What was that?
They didn't win for a couple of years after that, didn't
Mm,
they?
I'm pretty sure that was the year they won because they beat Vegas, 2017.
16, 17, no? Vegas,
Vegas' first season in the NHL.
okay,
Pretty
perhaps,
sure.
yeah, okay, maybe. I
It
don't know
was
why.
either that year or the following year.
Yeah, I thought anyways, we can look it up
But
afterwards.
in that regard, it's like the Leafs. Yeah, the Leafs had found money at that point because, as you said, everyone was like, Matthews and Marner so young, getting that playoff experience. I mean, they weren't even like the main, the main guys at that point, right? It was still, Bozak, Van Riemsdyk were still like kind of the Kadri was still like those were the veteran guys, and the young guys were getting up there. I just remember I was watching in Leafs. I was watching Maple Leafs where when Matthew scored his first playoff goal,
Yeah,
like it was a big moment in that game because Kadri had a big hit. The Leafs needed something, and that's what you're hoping to see that fight again. When you're down and out, can you push? Can you push? And I think the Leafs now have to obviously take that to another level. But I think it's those memories and those experiences is what the Leafs need to start to draw on.
Right. Pittsburgh won that year.
Okay,
The following season is when
right.
Washington went to
Yeah,
do it.
now that you mention it, yeah, that was the year that was the first year of the Kessel or the second year of Kessel getting the
That's a good point. Second year. Second year of Kessel. So it was their
yeah.
second cup,
That was
the
the first of the back to back. That
yeah.
would have been the Nashville one that
Yeah,
they
it was when
Nashville.
they played Nashville, yeah, and they ended up beating Ottawa in the semifinal. Ottawa literally
Right.
an overtime goal away from being in the cup final, and then they have never
Right.
even sniffed the playoffs since, and that roster is drastically different, from that game right there. Alright, okay, when we get back, let's tee up tonight's game. Let's talk a little bit about who's playing, who's not, how you're feeling. We'll do all that. And if you want to place a little wager on tonight's game, you can do that at betonline.net. BetOnline.net is is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sport developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and the start of Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today to use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. I am with Dave Morassutti. My bad, pal. I don't know why I even said Joe.
This guy looks like a Joe.
It's because you're somewhat Italian. You're bearded. Yes, you do look a little bit like a Joey, little Joey in you. We are your hosts of Locked On Leafs. Tonight's the final night of the regular season for Toronto. 81 games in the books. They have locked up home ice. They've locked up second place in the Atlantic. They have broken many, many records this season. They have 113 points, more than any Leafs team has ever gotten. Austin Matthews, 60 goals in the bank. Big time milestones that have been accomplished so far. And tonight's the final night. And doesn't look like Mitch Marner is going to be able to try and get to 100. We kind of discussed this after the game against Detroit. I think if he were to have gotten 1 or 2 points in that game, he was only 1 or 2 away. Perhaps he was given the go ahead to quickly try and get that in the first period and then maybe take the rest of the night off. Doesn't look like it. Yesterday, Sheldon Keefe came out, said Mitch Marner's going to miss the game. He's going to sit out for some rest. Austin Matthews going to sit out for some rest, and Jack Campbell going to sit out tomorrow night, or at least be the backup. Eric Shalgren getting the start. You like the moves, Dave? You like the
Yeah.
moves?
Yeah, I don't mind it because you know what, especially now knowing that they play tonight and then Monday they're right back into the playoffs.
Hmm.
Give the guys the time off. Let them get ready for Monday. I think especially with Campbell, I think he's done well with rest. He's done well knowing that he can just focus on the next game. And I think for Shalgren too, if let's say they do play the Bruins, it'd be nice if Shalgren got to see some of the Bruins players, you know, play against them. It wouldn't be a bad idea because you never, again, knock on wood that there's no injuries, but you always have to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And I think Matthews and Marner, yeah, they need those guys primed and ready to go for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, and Rasmus Sandin not ready to go, so he won't play tonight either. We were hoping that we would get at least one game to get a look at Sandin before the playoffs. That's not going to happen. Kasha also not likely to play tonight. No real update on Andre Kasha either, but he was skating last with the team, at least in a non-contact red jersey. So he's trending in the direction to potentially playing at some point early in round one. I don't know if it'll be game one, but at some point, I think we will see Andre Kasha back in uniform for the Leafs, which would be huge. But for tonight's game, this is a game where you just kind of toss everybody in bubble wrap. Like, honestly, I just don't want anyone. I don't want a single block shot. I don't want a single hit laid. Get rid of the puck as quick as you possibly can so you don't have to take a hit. Tonight is going to be one of those games. I think Noodles, Jamie McLennan from Overtime, said this is what in hockey what you call a no-hitter. This is for both squads because neither team wants to go limping into the playoffs, and it's probably going to be a bit of a boring game, I would think. Although everything seems to be opposite what we think is going to happen. Turns out to not be the case, but I would assume that tonight should be just kind of a let's get through this on both sides, and both stars on both teams aren't going to be in this game either. So it's going to be a bit of a depleted lineup. Yesterday in practice, it did sound like though Sheldon Keefe might be ready to put Matthews and Marner and Tavares back together again and reunite them just ahead of the playoffs. What do you think about that?
You mean Nylander and Tavares? So
Jesus.
it's okay.
This is gonna record in the morning because I'm not a morning person. I'm completely out of my element here. Yes, Nylander and Tavares reportedly gonna get put back together.
Mhm.
For how long we don't know,
No.
but looks like it's gonna happen tonight. Do you like it? Do you think that they should go back together, or have you appreciated kind of the balance that keeping them apart has had for this team?
I don't hate the balance that is provided. I just think that when it comes to the playoffs, you got to have your best playing at their best, and I think Nylander has needed Tavares, and more so, I think he needs the challenge. I think the challenge for I think Sheldon Keefe has to challenge them both and say, look, you guys are playing together. If you do well, you'll be together in the playoffs. Like I think there has to be some sort of challenge out there for both of them to just get back to what they were last year. Because I think that line needs to be there in order for this Leafs team to have the success because they're gonna be going. They're gonna want that matchup line on the third line that we've mentioned before with Camp and Engvall, and you can put Kerfoot, you can put Mikheyev, put whoever you want there.
Well, if Cash
Um,
is healthy, remember early in the season, Engvall, Camp, and Kasha were a
I
trio, the checking line as it was
I would
being.
like that a lot, or
That would
Cash
be,
with Nylander and Tavares.
well, if you want to keep McCabe up there, which arguably I would like to, because I think
Yep,
he's earned it and deserved it. Toss Kasha with Engvall, Camp, and Camp. They played great as a trio earlier in the season.
I
I
agree.
think his health, like if he's healthy, I think that's what affords you the opportunity to put Tavares and Nylander back together, and then you have that true shutdown checking line, which Sheldon Keith has talked about how much he wants so much.
Yeah, and I just think that Cash is going to be a wild card. Like there's X factors and wild cards. Cash is the obvious wild card going into this series. I think the fact that he hasn't had a practice without contact makes me suggest it's a later in the series type of thing.
Mm,
Um, just because that's usually how it goes for those things, and the
yeah.
progression back is. I look at it with Jake Muzzin. I'm pretty much mirroring their the recovery plan for both of them. But yeah, I think that it all comes down to you need to find a way to produce offense. Nylander and Tavares need to find a way to produce that offense. And I think having them back for this game, it gives them something to build off of. We've seen them. I mean, we saw what they did against Detroit in that one play. It's there. They just need to unlock it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case. So this is what was bumping in practice yesterday, and so Kerfoot, Matthews, and Marner were on the top line, but I would assume with Matthews and Marner gone, clearly that's not going to be the top line tonight. Mikheyev, Nylander, and Kasha were at practice yesterday, but keep in mind Kasha in a non-contact. Also, Tavares had a maintenance day, the day off, so you toss Nylander back out onto the wing, you put Tavares in there. Sounds like a Mikheyev, JT, Nylander line we could see tonight. Engvall, Camp, Blackwell, Clifford, Spezza, Simmons. And then on the blue line, Riley Labushkin, Muzzin Brody, Gio Lilligren. And to me, that looks like the 6-man unit that probably ends up going for game one. So they'll get one last kind of crack at ironing out whatever kinks they have before they got to ramp things up for game one come Monday. Should be a fun game. Eric Shogren's going to get the net and probably going to be Jeremy Swayman, who will be in goal for Boston based on Linus Ullmark getting the start last night. Implications, man. If they get the victory, if Toronto wins tonight, they secure Tampa. If they win in regulation, they secure Tampa. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what
There's some
happens.
intrigue in this game for a change. I thought this was going to be a throwaway game. There is now a little bit of intrigue.
Yeah, but it goes back to my kind of like joking a couple of days ago. Just tell them, hey, don't even bother taking the trip. Just take the 2 points. Just take the 2 points. You don't even have to come to Toronto. We'll take the L on our record, and no one's got to risk any injury. And hey, if that means that we got to play you in round one, so be it. So be it. All right, let's wrap things up here, Dave. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs pod on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. You can also follow the show at Locked On Leafs on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube, Locked On Leafs. Final game of the regular season tonight, folks. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. 7 o'clock puck drop. It'll be on TSN tonight, and I think maybe the Fan might have the game, or actually, no, I think TSN has the game as well, both on radio and on TV. But that's gonna do it for us. We'll be back with another episode on Monday. We'll be teeing up and previewing the Stanley Cup playoffs. They'll finally be here. Oh, I can't wait, ladies and gents. Enjoy tonight's game, though, and we'll chat again on Monday. Until then, keep locked right here on Locked On.